The first RS on the agenda is RS 22950. RS 22950. And Representative Ringo, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I appreciate the opportunity to present RS 22950. I'm Shirley Ringo, and I represent District 5. I'd like to begin by just giving a little background on this. Some years ago, the legislature was faced with issues surrounding a lawsuit dealing with how school facilities are funded in Idaho. And as a partial response to that, there was the creation of the Public School Facilities Cooperative Funding Program, which you see on the first page of this bill. And basically that was a program whereby public schools that had safety issues with which they needed to deal and could not get a bond passed to do it could tap into this fund. At the time that we put this in place, we deposited $25 million in the fund from which schools could draw if they were approved for this program. So that's something that we've had in place for a while, and just so you know, in the time that we've had this particular program, it's been used once by a school district, and another school district is kind of in process. But the current balance in the account right now is $16,694,739.62 to be exact. My district in the northern part of Idaho has several rural schools that I visit from time to time, and they actually are hard-pressed to manage to make ends meet. The superintendents and school boards are very careful to propose overrides which, when necessary, that they feel would be something that the public would go along with, not to push that too far. And so often I've had conversations with them that, they're making things work, but if a boiler should go out or some disaster like that should happen, they simply don't know how they're going to deal with it. Last spring, on a tour that the Joint Finance Committee was taking in the northern part of Idaho, we visited a school district where the superintendent mentioned that one of their buildings that was very old had a big bank of old windows, the old pane size, and that considerable heat was lost during the cold weather because of the inefficiency of those windows. She indicated that if she could replace them, she felt that the savings with the more efficient windows would probably pay for the project in 3 years. But they did not have the upfront money to do that. So that, along with my conversations with other rural schools, motivated me to try to find a way that we might help them deal with that. So that caused me to think of this particular fund and therefore this bill. The front page of the bill just has a small, on line 28, a little grammatical fix, and then to do the loan that this legislation was first put in place to deal with, the districts had to have failed a levy or two before they could apply, and I didn't want that particular thing to be in place for this loan program that I'm suggesting, so that's in lines 34 on. And then we can move ahead to the substance of the bill, which is on page 4. And so it simply is an extension of the program that was already in place to establish a public school facilities cooperative fund loan program. And it the establishment of it starts on page 37. The essence of the legislation is that it is limited to smaller school districts, 2,000 or fewer. The loans are limited to $2,000 and must be paid back in a 5-year period. Since we don't want to run this fund short for its original purpose, the maximum amount of all loans in any 1 year is $1 million. And then on item 4, the school district is allowed to cobble together the funds that they need by combining anything they borrow here with other sources. For example, it could be the lottery money or some other source that they have. And then I do have a sunset date so that we would have an opportunity to review the program and see how it's working. Item 5, State Board of Education will promulgate rules to implement the program. So that's the overall view of it. And Mr. Chairman, be glad to
Ringo,
try to
thank you
answer
so
any
much.
questions.
Questions? Representative Wills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Ringo, do you believe that without this, that it has held others back from making the application?
Go ahead.
Representative, the original intent of the fund when it was put in place was really for much larger projects where you would normally apply for a bond and, you know, go through all of that, and where the district wasn't able to pass the bond but had safety issues with which to deal. So this is on a much smaller scale where the amount is $2,000 or $200,000 or less. It would bypass having to go to the voters and try to get that money. But actually the language limits it to either safety issues or energy efficiency. And my intent is that it would help the smaller districts that have to be so careful about what they can ask their voters for because of the reduced tax base and other factors, to have a streamlined way of trying to get the money to do it.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, follow up.
I'll rephrase this question then.
Sorry.
Because you indicated there's only been one time that these monies have been have even been asked for.
Yes.
Do you think this will then allow those smaller school districts to participate in a way they have not been able to before, and will be an advantage for those school districts?
In my opinion, Mr. Chair and Representative, this is much more user-friendly. And the language in the original program did specify that if the program's used, that there would be appointed someone to oversee the district. And I think there were certain things built into that that probably were appropriate, but on the other hand, have been a detriment in a way to it being used. And so the intent here is if there's something that could help the district get a small project done that would be useful in some way, that it would be a smoother road to take.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would move that we send RS 22950 to print with a comment that I do believe sometimes, as we think that we're really doing things that are an asset to school districts, I think sometimes our smaller schools do get kind of left out of the equation, and so I think this is a good fix for everybody, and it would be easier for those to take advantage of this opportunity. So with that, I would ask that we move that we send that to print. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Clow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Representative Ringo. My question is more for you to maybe get some information to bring back in the future, but you mentioned that the balance in the fund is $16,894,739, and I didn't get the pennies, and I know you mentioned it. But anyway, what I'm curious about, is that like the cash balance of money available to be loaned out? I assume that. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, yes, it is.
Okay. Do you know how many loans are outstanding?
Mr. Chairman and Representative, There are no loans outstanding. It's been used one time, and the arrangement when the original program was used was that there would be follow-through for the district to take some steps to pay it back within a short period of time. But this program that I am proposing would have to be approved before there could be any of these smaller loans. So it's a different use.
Yeah.
Follow-up?
So maybe I misunderstood. I looked at it as a revolving loan fund, the 25 million, and so if we're down to 16 million, it's like somebody has defaulted or hasn't repaid. That's what. So maybe the money's just being used and given away, so to speak, to the school districts.
Representative Ringo?
Mr. Chairman, I may need some help on that one.
Okay. Mr. Hancock, did you want to elaborate?
Mr. Chairman, the reason it's at 16 million is there was a major project built out of that fund where a school had to be condemned in the Plummer-Worley School District, and so the fund stepped in, built a replacement for that facility for the school district, and it is in the process of being paid back. Okay. There are provisions in that law where it's essentially like a type of plant facility levy that gets imposed, and the dollars get paid back into the fund. There's some fairly complicated formulas there, as you might imagine, but not all the money is back in yet. It happens over a period of years.
Good.
One more follow-up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Jason. So what you're saying, the difference between the 25 million and the roughly 17, there is some debt out there that over time we'll see recovery, being paid back?
That's correct.
Okay, that's what okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Harris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just maybe a typo on page 4 on line 27. I think it's the Schools Facilities Cooperative Funding No Loan Program, which is the reference to 33909. You may want to look at that. The word loan and funding.
Yes.
On line 27.
Mr. Chairman and Representative, on page 1, the original program was called the Public School Facilities Cooperative Funding Program. And that was specifically for schools that could not pass a bond levy and the kind of project that we just discussed with Plummer-Worley. Then on page 4, this new program that I am proposing here has a slightly different name. It's called the Cooperative Fund Loan Program. And that's what is described in the new section.
Okay. I'm referring to line 27, which refers to the section 1. But we can look at that, or I may be wrong. But one quick, if
Go
I
ahead.
could.
Question?
On the first page, then, why wouldn't we want the school to at least attempt a levy first before they apply for this loan?
Representative Ringo?
Mr. Chairman and Representative, I think mostly because of the amount of the money involved being relatively smaller than you would normally go out and float a bond for, and to try to make it more user-friendly so that smaller districts, a lot of the smaller districts are so pressed to pass any kind of override or bond because their tax bases are so much different than the larger towns or larger communities. So it's just an attempt to have something available where these smaller projects, especially those that will be saving the district money in the long run, can be addressed.
Representative Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, thank you. Yesterday we had quite a presentation on school security and safety related to another bill, and we heard from a number of superintendents. I believe both were quite rural districts about the funding needs they have around school security that they can't quite meet at this point. Things like video surveillance or communication systems. And I'm comfortable with issues of imminent safety hazards like condemned buildings. I'm a little concerned, though, about this fund being depleted in a way to address things that are less imminent in terms of school security. We do need funding there, without question. But it concerns me that we might deplete the fund in a way that we couldn't address some very serious school security and safety problems. Could you address that?
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Representative. I think that would possibly be considered when we ask the Department of Education to promulgate rules. But you notice that we are limiting the loan program to $1 million a year. And depending on the size of the loans, if they went up to $200,000, that wouldn't be a lot of them. But the interest in limiting it to that is so that we won't deplete this and not leave the money for its original intent. And then there is a panel that will review these loans and award them as appropriately. And so we would have to look there as well to make sure that the higher priorities would be addressed.
Follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it would be determined then by a panel. For example, if a school district decided they did want to go into debt for an intercom system, which we heard yesterday was an issue in a school, it would not be an automatic thing. A board would have to make a determination of whether that was justifiable under this new section.
Mr. Chairman and Representative, I think that would be correct. When the original program was put into place, it specified membership on a panel that would evaluate the requests. And so it's that language would apply to this as well. And then, of course, as the rules would be promulgated, that would have to take into account the priorities by which the people would be selected that would receive it.
Representative Nielsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Ringo, along the same line, I have some concerns there too. Is there a point where they can say no to all of the loans in that particular year because we have to maintain possibly a fair balance in there to take care of a situation like Plummer Worley or I think Salmon was also involved in this thing, so that we don't deplete the funds to the point where we can't do what it was originally intended for. I'm a little concerned about that because I don't see anything in this language that denotes any type of priority, and I'm wondering if we ought to put that in language so that the board has something by statute to say, sorry, we don't have enough funds. And what that minimum needs to be, I don't know. Plummer Worley took how much? It's down to $16 million, so they must have. There was $25 million to begin with, so I'm assuming somewhere around $8 or $9 million had been taken out of the fund for things like Plummer Worley and the other place, and so that's one of my concerns on this issue. I will support the introduction, however.
Well,
Did you want to comment?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Representative. I definitely agree with your concerns, and as I ask people to review this legislation, that did come up. So the comfort zone I would have would be partially the opportunity to use the original program is pretty tight, and I think the fact that it's only been used once in the number of years it's been in place would be an indication that we wouldn't expect a big run on it. But on the other hand, I do agree that that is the priority for which the fund was put in place originally, and the panel that evaluates those loans being the loans from this program being awarded or not would have to keep an eye on that balance. And there's nothing in the language that says the loans have to be awarded. It's they just have limits on the upper amount. So, and I'm comfortable with it, but I'd certainly be glad to talk with you further about that.
Thank you. My comments would be just similar. I just think we need to make sure we look at the cash flow. If we've got $16 million in there today, theoretically in 5 years, we're going to have $5 million out in this loan because it's $1 million a year. So then we're down to $11 million. Is that enough of a safety net? So I think we need to make sure that the numbers make sense. And so perhaps when we have a hearing on this, we can look at those. My other comment is just from a conceptual standpoint, is it okay to bypass the voters? We're incurring debt, or the school district is incurring debt here, and typically whenever that happens, we want to involve the voters in that process. Now, obviously, the suggestion here is that, well, these numbers are small enough that the voters don't need to be involved. And, a Meridian School District would look at $200K and say, that's a rounding error in our budget, right? Well, they wouldn't say that really, but so I think we just need to be very careful as we look at these programs that we don't bypass the voters and their will. So what's the rationale for, okay, 200,000 is okay to bypass the voters where 300,000 is not? Why is that criteria? And perhaps you'll want to comment on that.
You raise a good point, of course. The scenario that caused me to look at this in the first place was that in a situation such as that one at Priest River, it would be a money savings that would result from the project that would, give the opportunity to pay it back. And then also we have facility money that comes in regularly each year from the lottery. So it would be a matter, I think, of managing resources.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I think the idea is definitely a good idea, and the idea to look at this fund is a way to maximize the use of those dollars. I'm sorry, Representative McDonald. I did not see your light.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. There are two prerequisites, as I understand this, for applying for this money. One is that it has a $200,000 limit. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman and Representative, that is correct.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
And the other one is that it has to be 2,000 students or less in the school district.
And Mr. Chairman, Representative, that's correct as well.
Okay. I kind of have the same concerns. As the good lady and the chairman elaborated on, there are some issues out there, and one of them is that what we heard yesterday with regard to some of the needs of the school districts would certainly fit in this category somewhere. One was a $17,000 issue, and the other was a $25,000 issue. And so I'm wondering why these school districts that need these things don't know about this or aren't using this. Could you answer that for me?
Representative Ringo.
Could I have you maybe clarify that question?
Sure. Let me try, Mr.
Representative McDonald, perhaps just to help direct, when you say using this, what are you referring to? The current fund? Anyway, I'm sorry, you go ahead and clarify.
Using this bill or this money that's available to them, because both of those issues fit within the category of this $200,000, and they need these things, but they're not, for some reason, they're not using this. And I don't know whether it's because they have to pay it back, whereas the other bill that we were looking at, there's no such agreement in place. And so it seems to me like this would be a real asset to school districts in these smaller communities, and those were two of the examples that we had yesterday. They were both small communities.
Mr. Chairman, I think you've done a great job of arguing for the legislation I'm trying to pass here, because the small loan program isn't in place yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Representative Pence, did I see your light on and off?
You did. I was going to offer some clarification or ask a question that would see where what the original program was, the restrictions. However, Representative has previously done the restrictions that were on the original program, and then the reasons the school districts haven't taken really more advantage of it.
Thank you. I think it was clear. All right. Seeing that is it in terms of questions, we do have a motion, and that is to introduce RS 22950. RS 22950. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you for your time.